A group of ROM hackers has not only ported the entirety of Path of Radiance to the GBA, but also a major part of Radiant Dawn, all on one ROM. Path of Radiance is a hard game to play because it's pricey, or because it's horribly slow once you actually play it. So when I found out it's on GBA, I hopped right on, only to find out a lot of problems later. First of all dialogue is Chinese. Thankfully, there is a menu patch, so for that part, if you already know the story of Path of Radiance, it shouldn't be a big deal. But when starting the prologue, there are already a ton of gameplay differences too between vanilla Path of Radiance and this remake. First of all, the song that plays here. For some reason, they decided to have this emotional Edge of Dawn remix for the first map. It's weird. That's not what I do for the first chapter. And I'm gonna put the music a bit less loud again because here's the single biggest issue I found when just testing the first little bit. Prepare yourself. That is loud as fuck. It's cool to get a voice acting programmed in, but it'd be cooler if I didn't have increased odds of tinnitus after 2. Speaking of Ike, his base stats are also nerfed from the original game. He was honestly just an average unit in the original, so I don't really get this. And trust me when I say this will make a bunch of early game maps awkward as hell. However, there are some cool things the prologue does give you, like the fact combat arts exist. It's the main way you beat Boyd up, and with Ike's worst stats, you'll probably need combat arts for reliable kills early on. Then Grill shows up to the battlefield after, and I think it's really cute how they kept all his stats, but they just show these minus signs to show he's only using a small percentage of his true power. Regardless, getting Grills is easy as always, and we move on to chapter 1 fast. One thing I didn't mention is that this game has 3 difficulties: Normal, Hard, and Maniac. I'm pretty good at Fire Emblem, so I felt comfortable selecting Maniac. However, I don't think anything could have prepared me for how crazy chapter 1 is. Yeah, this part got destroyed. On chapter 1 Maniac mode, the enemies have really broken skills. Axe users have Lance Breaker, which gives them +3 defense, attack, resistance, and active speed, alongside 20 hit and avoidance. Might as well make the weapon triangle instant kill next time. Jeez. Thankfully, Titania doubles and kills the first bandit in our way, while Boyd can tank hits from the axe fighters in the south. Yet, though we survived the first turn, the incoming Myrmidon here has enough speed to double literally everyone, except for Titania, making him a pain in the butt to take down. Thankfully, because Tempest Lens exists, Oscar could deal enough damage to the Myrmidon for Ike to pick off the kill. Titania lacked 1 damage to kill a brigand on enemy phase, but I figured I could just kill him and counter out. However, the counter in this game is just like the one from Engage, which means you only have 2 tiles to move. In Path of Radiance, counter is ridiculously broken, so I can get behind nerfing it. But this caught me off guard and made it harder for Titania to reach the village with a Sour Probe. Boyd takes a lot of damage from the axe fighters in the bottom, but he can still hold out. However, now a group of axe users and 1 Myrmidon are coming my way, one of which is already threatening the village. Titania had to use all her movements towards the village, leaving my 3 infinitely worse units to try and protect themselves. However, because Titania couldn't one-shot the axe fighter and all other units ignored her, I deemed it impossible to save this attempt or restart it. This maddening mode is pretty hard. On my second attempt, Titania didn't even double the first brigand. Though, by using Smash with Titania, she left him in range of Ike, who can't reach him. Unless you shove him, but not with Boyd, because he needs to guard against the South Brigand. With Oscar. That's right. For some reason, the cavalry units in this game can shove and then use counter with full move, like they weren't good enough already. Then, thankfully, Ike hit his Wrath Strike, so we could still get to turn 2. But on turn 2, Oscar failed to hit his 91% accurate Tempest Lance, making me forced to reset, and I also just took it as a sign to not play Maniac mode. The map just felt very strict, kinda giving me those early game awakening lunatic mode vibes. So I continued playing on hard difficulty. Hard, thankfully, removes a lot of the Landsbreaker skills from enemies, so Oscar can actually exist now. I tried moving Titania to the village faster, but the Myrmidon, while less strong, still doubled Boyd and I lost an attempt here again. Oscar one-shots that one problematic Myrmidon with Tempest Lands now. My guy went from next to useless on Maniac to goated on hard real fast. After this, I looked at my other units' stats, and Oscar and everyone else's normal stats, it's just Ike that has been nerfed. And after taking care of the initial wave of enemies, I noticed this mana icon. The cost of it is 30, but I had no clue what it does, or how to get it, so I opened the thread and got a very clear explanation.
The energy shows that AV9 Ray is the first game to invest in energy. Energy is used to activate active skills. The method of energy increase is to actively attack people. Orcs increase every round and increase active attacks. On reaching 30, you can incarnate. The energy behind the incarnation will drop, whether it is being beaten or actively hitting someone. When it is lower than 5, the incarnation will be automatically released. The orc incarnation is inexperienced, and the human form also has the means of attack. That energy is greater than the opponent's physique to rescue or let others travel. Finally, the difficulty is explained. It's a very important one. Boys, I don't really get it. I think I do get mana by attacking people, but that's about it.
I just continued without bothering about this mechanic, but we'll get back to it. Trust me. After destroying the scraps of enemies and getting some very mediocre level ups, it was time to kill the boss who doesn't have any changes. Which I wanted to do with Ike to up his garbage stats, however I forgot to click the combat art, so I saw the game over screen.
I want to do combat art. Wait, Soren, what the fuck are you doing here? By the way, your sprite is clean.
I don't think anyone struggles as much as me on the first chapter, but I talked so much about it now, there isn't much to add. I did the same strategy as last time. Boyd got a really good level up, and we proceeded to see even more insanity. Chapter 2 graphically looks nothing like the Path of Radiance version. The terrain is now full of desert tiles, giving you less movement, thus removing the option of camping in the western part of the map until Titania shows up. Now, you have to deal with every enemy head on, and my Ike gets doubled, so you absolutely cannot do that. Maybe some extra bases would have been nice here. With little options left, the optimal strategy for me was to make a conga line. Thank God that on this difficulty option, Oscar could actually tank the axe users. He took a lot of hits from them. Yet, even on the second turn, I am way outnumbered, so I had to do the most lame defense formation possible to just barely survive. Just as things were looking grim, the base Lord Titania arrives. Yet regardless of her appearance on the battlefield, things are rough. I tried using Boyd's mana skill, defense boost, to survive, though I had no way of knowing how much it'd be. Sadly for us, we didn't get to figure out how much, because all the enemies were either attacking Ike or Oscar, or they were using their vulneraries, so I figured it must have been a crazy amount. And I still don't know it, but he took 0 damage, so I think it's a lot. With her broken base Lord Titania, the rest of the map was easy. I decided to give the angelic robe you get from the village in chapter 1 to Ike, so I wouldn't get a heart attack every time he needs to enter more than one round of combat, and beat the boss with Boyd for sweet level up and speed wing. For chapter 3, a miracle occurred. This shitty looking Ike's already doubling. Anyway, shit on Angatria here, and they're pretty much unchanged compared to vanilla. What has changed, however, is that Marsha doesn't immediately enter the map. Usually that's your incentive to rush forwards, however now she enters the map so late I could literally block all units that even had a chance to attack her with Titania. Making this map the first one that's just easier than the original, but also lacks some of the charm. Also, the boss nor any of his goons drop a hand axe, so that might just be a little bit of a problem later. Chapter 4 is the map where Soren joins. He's a little buff here actually, with 2 points of extra magic, 1 point of defense, and the Vantage skill. Vantage always makes you move first in this hack, so he has a reliable skill this time around. This is the first map where I could show off a small difference about Titania compared to above Radiance version. She joins with the skill Triangle Adept, which gives her a hit and avoidance boost as she has weapon triangle advantage. I'm not sure how high the boosts are, but every Lance user has 0% hit. So this map is somehow a bigger joke than it already was. Upon beating this boss, I now get a red gem instead of a javelin. I suppose this game hates giving you 1 to 2 ranged weapons. This game being made in the Fire Emblem 8 engine, you choose shops on the battle prep menu. I try to be smart by buying a fire tome for Soren, but he can't use it. Even though Anima Magic is a single rank in your menu here, Soren will never use other Anima Magic now apparently. Now I understand why they buffed his base stats. Being locked to only wind kinda sucks. Chapter 5 is a defense map, but with a boss you can kill for those that plow through the enemies fast. Usually this is quite a doable feat, as with the hand axe and javelin you can hit any enemies, however without them this map is just kind of a slog. You now just put your best characters in choke point, and there's even less breathing room than the original for creative strategies because of how incredibly overwhelmed you get by the sheer number of enemies. I got to admit that me being bored during this map also lets me being careless, and I lost this map a couple times. The main struggle I had is that my west side was struggling while my eastern side wasn't advancing at all. I really wanted to kill the boss. I struggled finding an answer for a while. However, as with everything during this game seemingly, the answer is Titania. So if I wasn't having an issue in the east, I moved her to the west. If I wasn't having an issue west, she went to the east. Titania is always the answer. And that includes her being the answer to the boss of this map, who, unlike his Path of Radiance counterpart, doesn't move towards you. Thankfully, we do have a hammer, and Triangle Adept just makes her kill this dude in 2 separate dimensions. For Chapter 6, Titania needed a speed wing to double the boss. I also gave her a goddess icon, because clearly she's not good enough yet. Sadly for this map, the AI doesn't work like it did on Path of Radiance. You see, in Path of Radiance, as long as you stay in the forest tiles, the enemy won't move to you. However, ignoring the entire gimmick of this map, almost all enemies want to assault you instantly. This is the first map I tried using mana on Ike, which I used to give him avoidance. Sadly, that wasn't very useful against Triangle Adept Lance users. On top of that, I missed a bunch of attacks in the forest, because imagine being able to hit enemies that have plus 20% avoidance. It's sadly kind of impossible to challenge anywhere but on the forest tiles too. And I wasn't lucky here, so I had to reset. On a retry, I just moved Titania in. This is also where I noticed my infantry units don't have shove, but only smite, which makes navigating throughout all those forests very awkward. I don't know why they don't have shove. Preferably I'd like both, but okay I guess. Reese in his attempt was hit by a javelin, endangering his life. However, Reese has a skill called Refuge, so he could kind of rescue himself that way, which I think is pretty cool actually. After murdering those multiple soldiers somehow, Oscar was at 30 mana, and I wanted to try using his crit boost to see how much more he'd get. He only got 10 extra points, but that didn't save him from a halberd, which makes another retry because I was just careless. After moving past the huge initial waves of enemies again and not losing Oscar to a stupid mistake, we reach the end of the map. However, the boss doesn't move from this map, so he doesn't guard the escape point. So if I theoretically wanted to, I'd never even have to interact with this guy. To make it even worse, when you kill the boss, you end the map, also going against Path of Radiance. And to make it even worse, when you beat the map, Lindsay gives you a heal staff instead of a mantier. Great. Chapter 7, also known as Chapter 00 according to the in-game, is perhaps the least faithful map yet. First of all, this is the map where Mia joins, but she isn't smiling in her sprite. Criminal. However, Mia has a custom sprite and animations, so that crime has been kind of forgiven. A cool thing about this map is that you have your Chapter 6 army on one side, while Shinon and Gatri join later on the other side of this map alongside new enemies. However, a massive change is that the boss now, for some reason, is super buffed. He's a sage with 17 speed. Holy fuck! You were not that good in the original. Shinon and Gatri's spot where they join is also kind of fucked up now. There's a mage very close to them, and where there's normally a crack in the wall so you can get to the treasure room, there's nothing this time. On top of that, Sep Mage also deals super effective damage for some reason to Gatri because Armor Knights need nerfs? The crack in the wall instead is now below on the map, which doesn't really fucking matter. There's a thief here in the original game to incentivize you to move forward so you can nab the treasure in the treasure room, but they forgot to make him move. So that poor guy just kind of stands there. This little treasure room is such an important aspect of the original map, but has been completely neglected now. Anyway, with a horrible joining spot, Shinon and Gatri pretty much joined as dead men. Poor Shinon even got surrounded and died. On my second attempt, I encountered even more flaws in this map. As I know this time, Shinon and Gatri spawn in a horrible spot for their survival, I had Titania rush towards their spawn point. While it's easy to do it, because all enemies have 0 hit on her, the next turn all she had to do was hit the fire mage, so Gatri faced no danger, but I missed. I also still wanted to move Shinon and Gatri, but I moved all my other units, except for them, and the game just ended my turn. I gotta say, this is one of my favorite maps in both Radiance, so all these changes honestly made me kinda sad for a bit. I also had some really bad luck with Mia, and look at how the Northern squad is doing here. Just not good at all. But after taking some time to recompose, we did the same strategy, but slightly different. I forgot to move Titania far enough for her to be in range of the fire mage. However, because I still had other blue units left this time, Shinon and Gatri could actually move. So I killed the fire mage with Shinon and the Myrmidon with a Tempest Lance from Gatri. Then, with less enemies to worry about, I took the middle point with the northern group until we could group up with Ike's squad. Gatri almost died in the process because regardless of my efforts he was still in range of a fire mage, but Shinon's life taker and ability to one-round mages made him cover for Gatri well. By the way, Shinon has life taker, that's pretty cool. Funnily enough, the last danger before we tackled the boss were mage reinforcements, guarded by healers who have aggressive AI, making them perform a pretty good attempt to body block their way to Sep mages. Not sure if this was intentional game design, but it was a funny little addition to this map, which I think deserves highlighting too. There are still a couple enemies left, including the Thief, who doesn't even move when they are in their attack range. Then, looted a Killing Edge, Red Gem, and Pavis for some reason already. It's now time to kill the boss, whom I could only chip damage with Shinon because he leveled speed once. At base, Shinon gets doubled and dies. Alongside my Titania, who at this point has 20 speed and with counter can move outside of the boss's range to safely chip damage him as well. While we're waiting on the boss's inevitable death, Ike and Soren gain their B support. Which doesn't sound too weird, but I never even had C support. Maybe it's just a text error, but at this point I wouldn't be surprised they just started with B rank. A couple Titania hits later, the boss is in range of Boyd's combat art, so I decided to give him the kill, and got a good level up. Boyd's looking strong. Chapter 8 shows that base conversations are in this hack, which I think is pretty impressive. I know I'm ragging on some of the bad points of this hack, because, well, there are a lot. But the mere amount of content they put into this hack is so impressive to me. I just wish it had a bit more polish. Anyway, with all the red gems this game gave me, I am incredibly rich now. And if you didn't think Titania seemed broken enough right now, I also gave her the Pavis scroll because it seemed funny. Chapter 8 is normally quite scary. You're getting hit by a ton of enemies from 3 different angles. However, I have Titania, who on the left hand side doesn't face hit rates above 40%. I also used defense mana for the second time, now on Ike. I mean, it's by far the most broken one. 10 points of crit or avoidance were honestly almost irrelevant. However, the defense boost gives you 10 extra points of defense. Genuinely, what the fuck? This outclasses the other boosts by so much. It allowed my Ike to take 0 damage from every single Cavalier and kill back with the Regal Sword. This made 2 out of the 3 sides I got attacked from a total cakewalk instantly. That said, Ike needs to move from his spot at some point to recruit Ileana, who's on the western side of the map. And the eastern side of the map isn't as free to defend. I moved Oscar in front of the mage on a choke point. Then the mage was at risk of death, however I let Reese move into his range. Now, the mage has the option of dealing 0 damage every turn by attacking Reese, or dying. And he prefers 0 damage, so I made yet another choke point. My only big mistake was moving Soren in range of a longbow, which doesn't seem bad on its own. However, there's also a Cavalier with a Javelin who got bandage credits. Now I'm able to choke all 3 points. The map became kind of a joke. The only funny thing is that Titania activated Pavas and then hit 2 38 percentages in a row. I'm pretty curious about the math of that one. Let's talk about Ileana real quick. She joins with Elf Thunder, however without C rank magic. She can't use it. So that's just weird. After beating Chapter 8 swimmingly, the cutscene for the end of Chapter 8 is bugged. Ike one-shot soldiers, which is completely unrealistic. The screen randomly messed up, and Left misses the boss in an attempt to save Ike and the gang. She fucking missed! Is she supposed to be fronting? This cutscene's so inaccurate to reality, I still can't believe what I just watched. To end Chapter 8, I'll just give you Mordecai, who is so huge that his whole sprite doesn't even fit on screen. Chapter 9 is where we get Mist and Rolf. Mist got the biggest nerf out of any character in this game. First of all, she isn't a cleric anymore, making Reese the only early game healer. But more importantly, what she is instead is nothing but complete utter dog shit. She is a villager that uses swords, who joins with the Floret, but she cannot use that because she only has D-rank swords, leaving her only able to use the Armored Sword, which gives her a grand total of 7 attack points. You'd think maybe they made her a robust growth unit, but no! Her growths are the same, except for 10% extra strength growth. There's 50 magic that she cannot even use unless she promotes maybe, but I doubt anyone in the world actually wants to grind her. And for some reason, all her base stats are worse too now, with a frail ass 13 HP. Ike being the only other character with major nerfs just convinces me that Grill's family has hurt someone on this dev team personally. Anyway, we also have the best change yet now. Rolf actually got buffed, getting 10 base speed and strength at the cost of being a little less bulky. It's funny how Rolf joins with more strength and shit on now, but I'm not complaining. This is a sick change. Lastly, we got the first Longest joining us as green units, with yet another all change. The Longest gem is now a 1-2 range weapon. I'm not sure what to think of this. I like that the Longest were just very powerful one-trick ponies involved with Radiance, but I'm not fully opposed to them getting a new option if it's kinda limited. But I have to admit that part of my hesitancy to call this change cool is because getting bombarded by misters in the same chapter the Longest get buffs is definitely clouding my judgment. Onto the map, there's one very huge change. The sand in this map doesn't slow your units down anymore. As much as I tend to hate the rain slowing you down, I liked how in the original it gave you a clear reason to split up, as your infantry units are clearly better here, while Titania and Oscar are better on the land. However now, my strategy was to send Titania here. This is where I discovered her mana ability, which allows her to swap her weapon type. So by swapping to Sword and drinking the pure water, Titania continued to be untouchable. I wish I thought of this earlier, because the ability to just swap a weapon at any given turn, which is, by the way, very doable, because swapping her weapon type only takes 5 points of mana compared to the 30 of all the others, in combination with Triangle Adept, makes her untouchable any given turn. So what I'm trying to say is they buffed Titania but nerfed Mist. As for my strategy on the other side of the map, I let Left and Mordecai kinda just kill everything, however I didn't realize up until halfway through the map that I kept the order command. As I want to say, I think it's impressive how they coded that in. and then you get the opportunity to attack with Rolf ones, and Rolf's bow has a ridiculously OG animation.
Okay.
On Titania's side of the map, she kills the medievals and everyone else easily, while Lev and Mordecai are carrying us the road to forests. But there's one challenge I didn't expect to face on this map.
Marsha also joins this map. However, instead of interacting with Ike, she prefers battling the Poison Egg Brigand reinforcement. At this point, my Ike was at the other side of the map, and I had to do a crazy rescue and shove chain to get him in range. But I just barely missed talking to her by one tile, which I thought would be fine, but her AI does everything it can to avoid talking to Ike, even when she was on the verge of death by poison and all she had to do was talk to Ike so I could heal her. Her social anxiety ended up winning and she retreated in a forest so she could die in solitude. This fucking idiot just literally killed herself because she refused to join me! What am I supposed to do then?
What I think is funny is how the boss is a horse slayer trying to pose a threat to Titania again, but with 0% hit rate, he's about as threatening to her as Mist is to him. I gotta just say that my Titania has a really good stats too right now. 20 speed, 17 strength, and 13 defense is nothing to laugh at. After this chapter, witnessing the craziness of the changes here and getting a feel for how to cheese it, I was kind of done. However, I kept on going for just one more chapter. Chapter 10 in Vanilla is one of the most unique maps in the series, because as long as you stay out of sight of the soldiers, you can beat the whole map without entering combat once, and you get bonus EXP for beating it. However, I was still tilted at Marsha, and honestly didn't really have plans to play the game any longer. So I just charged at the nearest soldier with Titania and procced the reinforcement. An unfortunate change about this map is that they nerfed Soren. He only has 12 HP. I thought him having unreasonable bulk was very funny in the OG, but when he dies, there don't seem to be any consequences, so it's okay. Volk also joined us, and he uses swords in this game. Can't be too mad I didn't make a separate weapon type for him. This is the first time we have the Logos units playable too. They have to use the mana to transform, but they can also use their Logos gems as weapons. But those deal magic damage. However, their transformed states are way more powerful than before. Just look at Mordecai transformed here and his massive 31 strength. While most of the map is very easy, Kieran is kinda stupid. The guy with no weapons for some godforsaken reason has aggressive AI. So the dude not only tries to commit suicide by standing next to an enemy soldier, he was also about to waltz into the room, 3 armor knights and the boss. Thankfully I could just rescue him to prevent this crazy behavior, but this game has some of the worst screen unit AI I've ever seen. Said room Kieran wanted to waltz into is very easily dealt with by Mordecai and his Logos gem, dealing respectable damage to all armor knights from beyond the wall. While the boss, regardless of having no ranged weapon, doesn't move, making him kinda easy to deal with. With the map over and done with, I claim the treasure, which has been crazily buffed. You get a Brave Axe, Brave Lance, which are ridiculous weapons for this point in the game, and a Master Seal, because the boss didn't drop it this time. With a Master Seal secured, I was curious how this game would handle promotions, and as you might expect, it's a little juiced. So after beating Chapter 10, I just messed around in the battle preparations. For some reason, Soren can choose from any class to promote into, which includes Wyvern, which is very funny and terrible. But also Mage Knight, which just astounds me, because being a mounted healer was the whole reason Mist is so good, which I figured was the reason for her nerf, but no, Soren just got a straight up better class. This made me curious about other characters on the promotion paths, and most of my level 10 plus characters only had one option. Except Volk, who could also just become anything he wanted, which is interesting considering the guy has a whole special promotion later in the game. Lastly, for completing Chapter 10, you get rewarded with Nephany, Braum, and Kieran. Except Kieran isn't here. You see, when I finished Chapter 10, I did so while having Kieran rescued, but I think the game didn't process that or something, and they just left him to rot in the prison for eternity now. Then I also got rewarded with a rare candy. It straight up gives your units 100 points of extra experience. I think it's a neat way to compensate for not being able to program bonus experience in, but I also think it's funny how it's just as rewarding to give Titania as it is to Mist. So that was my experience with Path of Radiance Ray. I think this game has some really cool ideas, however I think the project could still use a lot of work, as there are just so many imbalanced things to be found at every nook and cranny. Let me know if you wanted to see me play that further. I'm not sure whether to continue or not because of the sanity I lost during the stream, but I'm used to losing my sanity because I beat a 0% growth run once, which you should totally check out.